As the end of December and the start of January rapidly approaches, it's that time of year again for us to start thinking about what we can do to improve our health, maybe lose some of that excess holiday weight that we've put on, and make decisions that are going to set us up for success and being healthier in the new year. For many of you that haven't been working out religiously through the back end of the previous year, this can pose quite a challenge for you, specifically when we're thinking about lower back pain. And hopefully in today's video, the 5 steps that we've got for you, as well as some of the bonus strategies at the end, will really help you avoid, during this time, any flare-ups of back pain or new episodes of back pain that might be brought on through this vigorous and well-intentioned New Year's resolution. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Michael Fatika, the lead osteopath and spine specialist here at Back in Shape, and we help people around the UK and all over the world fix their back pain from home and get back in shape for the long term. And in today's video, it comes at the perfect time as we approach the midpoint in December to just get this forewarning and start thinking about what precisely we might be doing as the new year comes round, especially if we're thinking about getting into fitness after not doing it for quite some time. Because simply put, the last thing we want is to get midway through January and find we've got back pain, soreness, aching, or we've set off that sciatica again, or aggravated that old herniated or degenerative disc. So with some of the steps here, it's going to allow you to effectively move forwards and massively mitigate against any risk of flare-ups or injuries. This first step is really a reflection, and it's going to separate many of you watching this into one of two camps. Either you're the person that routinely fitness has been part of your life. You basically work out day in, day out, week in, week out. Maybe you're working out something like 4 or 5 times a week, and you have done so every single year, every single month for as long as you can remember. And for those of you, you can skip ahead to the back end of this video where we've got some more important steps for you to take in step 5. However, unlike those individuals, for a lot of people watching this, we know that you probably haven't worked out much in the back end of the previous year, if since maybe the start of last year. This might have been for a variety of different reasons. It could have been injury, but it could have been that you just lost interest, that things fell by the wayside and you stopped working out. For you guys, it's particularly important that you follow the next couple of steps leading up towards the end, because it'll help you avoid making the same mistakes year in, year out that prevent you actually ever getting any meaningful momentum and achieving your goals in terms of getting fitter, getting healthier, getting stronger. Ultimately, it's really tempting when you're fired up sometime between Christmas and New Year to get started. If you're someone that hasn't been working out, you're that second category of individual, then you gravitate towards doing these sorts of workout classes, these boot camps and all that kind of stuff. And there's loads of them on this time of year to get people in. But you have to understand that those classes, as well-intentioned as they are geared towards the individual that has a degree of competence. The metric by which those classes are evaluated by your colleagues or by your other participants will be whether they feel like they're dead at the end of the workout. It is not there to focus on your technique, to perform things well, etc. In spite of the fact that the instructor will want to do a good job and help you make sure you've got the best technique, they might have 20 or 30 or 10 or 15 people in the class, and their main intention, the thing that spreads word of mouth in that class, is going to be other people leaving the class going, God, do you know what? That boot camp that I did this morning absolutely killed me. It's so good. And for you, those of you that haven't worked out all year or for a good number of months, this is a big thing to avoid. But so often, because you don't have that experience, you just go, well, I'm just going to do a workout class. How bad can it be? The reality is that a lot of these classes are high tempo, they're high pace. You're using maybe some weights here and there. There's maybe some leaping and bounding. The range of motion that you're going through on these exercises is not particularly good, and the technical competence, especially of movements like the squats, the lunges and the hip hinges that might well be involved as movements or part of movements in these classes, are just not done with the execution that's necessary. And you only have to stop for a moment to look around at your other classmates that are doing these classes to see all sorts of technical variations, many of which can be problematic, especially if we are harboring some background of previous injury in the lower back, etc. So before we move on to the next step, please note, these classes, it's not a dig at the individuals running these classes. They have to cater for those guys that we mentioned in the first step, the guys that are used to working out and the ladies that are used to working out year in, year out. They have that technical competence to come into these classes and absolutely smash it day in, day out and really get the results. But this is neither safe nor necessary for most of you trying to first get into working out. There is a much smarter approach to this to start off with, which will be just as effective in actually reaching your goals in the short term without doing something that's way out of your comfort and competence zone. For a lot of people starting their New Year's workouts, they are still limited on time, right? Work's kicked off, the school's kicked off for the kids. You know, we've got all sorts of things firing on all cylinders, and we perhaps don't have a lot of time. So we want to make sure that we've got the best bang for our buck with the workouts that we're going to actually do. And by far, the best way to approach this is to just focus more on whole body, large compound movements. There are a couple of benefits for this. Number one, they're going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of effective time use, but also they're going to target the most areas of the body in the same workout, and you can do them week in, week out, day in, day out. So an example of a simple, really time efficient workout might include something like some sort of pushing exercise. This could be a bench press, it could be a chest press on one of the machines. Then we've got some sort of pulling exercise. This could be a rowing exercise. It could be not rowing on a row machine, but actually a barbell row or a machine row in the gym. It could be a pull down exercise, like a lat pull down of some description. And you could also, of course, put in place things like an inverted barbell row where you're in the gym hanging on a barbell, pulling yourself up, or using the chin up bar or assisted chin ups, if you know, to swap those out for the pull downs and rowing variations. But some sort of row to work the back muscles. So we've got the press to work the front, the row to work the back, and then we've got some sort of leg work. And generally speaking, a squat is such an easy one. And the reason this is relevant, especially when we're thinking about the squat, because that's where we want to think about the back, is that you can focus on getting good technique first and foremost with all of these, but particularly the squat, to make sure that you are competent and effective when you're performing this and not risk aggravating your lower back. And the final things, you might want to include some cardio, some element of something like a cross trainer, or some element of cardio on the treadmill or the Stairmaster. These can all be good avenues, and maybe you finish up with something like 20 minutes on there at the end of your workout. Now, for the first part of that, the strengthening exercises, so the row, the chest press, and the leg exercise, the squat, we could perhaps do something like 3 or 4 or 5 sets of 10 reps before we move on to the next exercise. And this will take you somewhere in the region of 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes to do the strengthening work, and then 20 minutes of the cardio, and we're done. And your first week of working out, you're not going to jump straight into that workout, but you're going to play with the individual exercises. You might go into the gym and just potter around and do a little bit of the chest press variations to make sure that you're doing things right. We're not rounding all over the place with our arms. This video, we're more interested in the lower back and more interested in the squat, but I'll cover these anyway. When we're doing the row, for example, we don't want to be having our shoulders up by our ears. We don't want to be curling over if we're doing a pull down. We want to observe correct technique. And you can always leverage and use some of the trainers that will be in the gym. I'm more than happy to help you with a little bit of form on some of these very, very simplistic but effective exercises. We're all too guided or tempted by those very complex different exercises and lots of different things while we're in the gym, but actually the basics, the simple ones work because they're most efficient and they're most wide-reaching in their benefits. When you're doing something like a press, you're going to work the chest, the shoulders, the arms, you're going to work the core to a degree to stabilize yourself, etc. When we're working the row, we're going to do exactly the same but on the back. All of these back muscles and postural muscles and core are all going to be engaged while we're doing these exercises. And of course, when we're doing the squat, we could argue that the legs are the primary drivers, but the whole body has to be engaged and holding good posture as we're doing this. And we work everything so we can get a really, really efficient workout that's good. Now, when you're learning some of these, you can use regressions. This is a great strategy, especially for those of you that maybe have a bit of concern around your lower back. For the squat, for example, you can use assisted repetitions where you hold onto a bar or hold onto some bands or use a little bit of support to help you do the squat with good technique. Maybe you're not very strong. You could use half reps. You could use full reps with just body weight. You can progress this on to using dumbbells or kettlebells in a goblet position, or even using bands, holding them up by your chest to act as a introduction to weight. And we can progress that on further to holding a weight lower down, a dumbbell between our legs in a low hold squat. We can also progress this on, obviously, to use the barbell as well. But you can find safely and carefully, working through the difficulties of those, the right sort of intensity that works for you in this first week of January to make sure we get our kind of workout and our weights correct before we start pushing ourselves hard. And you'll find out in the exploration of doing this and playing around with those particular exercises, you'll find it's a workout in of itself compared to what you've done for the last couple of weeks anyway. Now, there is actually a full squat tutorial over on the website, so we'll put a link down into the description so you can check that out, and we'll also be linking some other resources later on that are going to help you. So check that description out at any point to see those resources and use those to help you. Now, it might sound obvious, but it's so tempting to jump into things like jump squats or things like burpees because they are really, really tiring. But if you're just working out for the first time in a while, maybe months, maybe even since last year, then the need to add in these high impact activities is completely not there. It's much more effective and equally effective in terms of losing weight and getting in shape to focus on the static controlled exercises to begin with. Granted, if you progress like that effectively over the next 3 months into March and April, you might consider the appropriateness or necessity to add in leaping and bounding movements, and because they might be relevant to the sports and other pursuits that you're interested in. But right now for January, focus on control, focus on technique, and focus on executing these simplistic exercises well, consistently over this period of January to really build some good momentum without putting unnecessary risk on your lower back. When you're doing things like burpees, for example, you're moving your spine through a tremendous amount of range. There's a lot of moving parts there. And if you do have a lack of background in coordination in these sorts of sports and activities, as fun as it might feel, sometimes it just exposes you to unnecessary risk that you're just not prepared for, as they're often going to be added in midway through or partway through, or maybe even the end of a workout, and you're exhausted, you're not holding things together anymore properly, and it just poses that unnecessary risk that can derail you. And why do that when there's so many other much more effective or equally effective exercises that you can do that don't have that same degree of risk? So no matter how you answered that evaluation point in step 1, this next part is going to give you some practical tips and steps and resources to help you manage your back strain over this period to avoid any flare-ups of previous back injuries or any new back pain itself. We have to recognize that even if you've got an experience, you've been working hard, people often up the ante in January just because of the motivation factor, etc. And therefore it's sensible to do some element of relief-based work to just relieve the strain that's building up on that lower back. Now I'll put a link down in the description to a full routine that you can follow along with that includes all of these exercises. But we'll start off by talking about them one at a time. The first practice is the bed decompression. This involves us lying along the edge of the bed. We've got our upper arms hanging over the side of the bed, and we're going to use these to press down into the side of the bed to create this stretch through our lumbar spine. A lot of what you're going to be doing in these workouts is going to exert some element of strain on the lower back, and daily life has strain as well. So being able to just do something, think of it like brushing your teeth, right? You use your teeth every day, you brush them at the end of the day, you brush them at the start of the day, you brush them after you have a meal, whatever it may be. But you do that as a care of self. It's not cumulative. It's not getting better. Your teeth aren't getting progressively better from brushing them. You're just keeping them healthy. And the same thing with these exercises or stretches. This bed decompression is a great way to just pump those discs in the lower back and create a bit of ease of tension and compression that's built up through the activities of the day. And it's great to do after a particularly intensive workout, especially if you're doing movements like squats, hip hinges, or deadlifts, or other high impact movements that you might be doing in some of these high intensity or bootcamp classes. When you're doing this exercise or stretch, you're simply pressing your arms into the side of the bed. This creates a stretch. You hold that there for 3 to 5, maybe 10 seconds, and you're going to relax then and hold it for the same amount of time, just relaxing into the bed. And you might repeat this for something like 10 or 15 repetitions, just creating this nice pump and relaxation in the lower back. And if you're getting it just right, you might feel a little bit of aching just happening down in the lower part of your lumbar spine, about where your belt or waistline might sit. The second stretch is the towel stretch. We've got lots of videos on this, but essentially this involves placing a small rolled up towel underneath your lower back as you're lying on your back. This can be done on the bed, but ideally we do it on the floor, and you can do it right after doing the bed decompression. And what this is going to do is support the natural backward bending curve in the lumbar spine, and this helps create a subtle decompression at the level of the discs. So very similar in many ways to the previous stretch. This is just a more passive one, supporting the curve a little bit better. And because the towel is supporting the natural, healthy lordosis of the lumbar spine, it's also taking the ligaments and the muscles of the back off stretch and allowing them to relax. Because we spend so much time sitting every single day, not to mention the strain that's going to come on our body and our back specifically from our workouts, which is entirely acceptable, doing this kind of stretch is a nice care of self routine and really complements the bed decompression as well. And you can hold it for something like 2 minutes to 5 minutes, although some of you when you're starting out might want to just do it for about 20-30 seconds at a time just to get into it. This third practice is particularly important for those of you that feel like you have a bit of a niggly back, you've maybe had some injuries in the past, and it is the use of contrast bathing. Contrast bathing is where we're going to use heat and ice alternating on the lower back for 3 to 5 minutes of each. This could be using a hot water bottle and ice pack. We've got a great video on the recovery therm cube from Therabody, which is something that we use and we recommend our members use because it just makes this process a lot more efficient by using technology. But essentially we're using this to just manage the excess buildup of inflammation in the lower back. If you've got any sort of degenerative disc disease, any sort of stenosis, or just general wear and tear or arthritis in the lumbar spine, inflammation can sometimes build up in that area after your workouts or your long days in the office, etc. and create a little bit of back discomfort. If you're getting those signs that you're getting a bit of an achy back or a stiffness in the back, or maybe a bit of symptoms down in the leg, classically thinking of sciatica here, then using this ice or contrast bathing directly over the lumbar spine can just help mitigate any of that building up over time and creating a problem. And this would generally be the last thing you would do after maybe doing the towel stretch that we just mentioned. Two little bonus practices that we also recommend frequently are going to be some lower body stretching done with the spine in mind. And what that means is we're going to stretch the muscles of the hips, but we're not going to involve the lumbar spine. So the lumbar spine will not be moving. This could be some simple stretching of the glutes, the hamstrings, the hip flexors. And we've got a great 10-minute follow along routine that's over on the website. You can check out, link down in the description. And that could be done before you do the bed decompression, the towel decompression, and the contrast bathing. And before that, we could also use, because many of you will have them, massage guns to work on these same areas of the body to help just ease some of the muscle tension that builds up in those areas and help our body get rid of some of that lactic acid and waste products in the muscle tissues after we've been working out. And this is a nice and easy one, and we've got another full follow along routine that you can use. Again, link down in the description to follow along with that in real time, so you can just press play and do the thing. Ultimately, if you follow those daily practices that we've talked about in step 5, you'll find that you can combat most sorts of back pain that might start to build up during this period. And as long as we're sensible with our workouts, we should find that we go into January and then on into February with no problems whatsoever. But if you do find you're unlucky enough to run into some sort of trouble, to injure yourself, to push yourself a little bit too hard on that one exercise, that one workout, that one class, then you can always check out the website for many more resources that are going to help you recover from back pain and get back to working out. Because the most important thing we can do is some element of resistance workouts on a daily basis to preserve our health and well-being, make sure that we age as well as possible, and make sure we stay mobile as we get older. And we wouldn't want anything to get in the way of that process. So hopefully you found these little tips and strategies helpful to make sure that you have the most success this year as you're going to get back in shape. If you made it this far through the video, thanks for watching. Hopefully it's been really helpful. If you have any questions, you can post in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.